I used everything I had left to save him. Every breath, every heartbeat, and then nothing. My heart stopped. My body went cold. I was gone. But the Alpha King didn't let me go. He pressed his lips to mine, and with one fierce, wild kiss, he forced his wolf's life into my dead heart. I came back screaming, not from pain but from power. His golden energy tore through me, binding itself to my fragile human soul. I lived, but I wasn't just me anymore. I was his. I was part of the wolf. Chapter 1. The Curse of the Quiet Cabin. The forest always smelled like rain and regret. It was a scent Lila Rowan knew well. Her hands moved fast, kneading dough for her son's bread. Not only that, her mind raced faster. It always did. Outside the window of their small, weather-beaten cabin, the ancient woods pressed close. They felt less like trees and more like giant, silent judges. "Mama, why can't we go to the stream today?" Ethan, her 7-year-old, asked. His voice was bright, a little sunbeam trying to cut through the cabin's perpetual shadow. Lila smiled a small, tired smile. Truth be told, her chest ached. "Too muddy, sweet pea. We'll stick to the garden path, okay? We need to check on the ginger root." Because of that one small lie, a cold weight settled in her chest. She couldn't tell him the truth. She couldn't say, "We can't go to the stream because someone might see us, because the stream is too close to the human path." More importantly, she couldn't say, "Because I'm a witch to them, Ethan, and my power only brings pain." That was her misbelief, the heavy chain wrapped around her heart. She had to stay invisible. She had to keep him safe, which meant keeping her secret. Her healing gift, the power the townspeople had called witchcraft, had gotten her exiled. Still, she sometimes felt a hum beneath her skin, a restless energy, as if pulled by a string. "Mrs. Willow says the woods whisper things," Ethan whispered now, drawing a quick, colorful picture of a rabbit. Lila froze, dropping her rolling pin. Mrs. Willow? That name? It meant they were talking to people in town. Despite that, she tried to keep her voice light. "Mrs. Willow is a sweet old lady," Lila said, turning back to him. In that moment, she realized her biggest fear wasn't the woods. It was the quiet, slow erosion of their isolation. What's worse, Ethan's drawing had a second detail, a big, shadowy animal with golden eyes. "She says if you go too deep, the guardians take you," Ethan continued, his eyes wide with a childish mix of fear and wonder. Lila knelt beside him. "We don't go deep, remember? We stay here." Her voice was firm, because she needed him to understand the gravity of their self-imposed exile. She felt it, clear as day, the danger closing in, not from a shadow, but from the simple human desire for connection. Just like that, the air outside snapped. It wasn't thunder. It was a sharp, wet thwack followed by a heavy animal grunt, like something huge had fallen. The sound came from the west border, the deepest, most dangerous part of the forbidden woods. Her heart skipped. She told herself it was just a deer, a bear, anything but what her instincts screamed. Before she could move, Ethan looked up at her, sensing the shift. "Mama, what was that?" This was the quiet life she fought for. And now, the forest was demanding a payment. Chapter 2. The Dying Wolf. The cabin door slammed shut behind her, the noise sounding deafening in the suddenly silent woods. Lila clutched a rusty old hunting knife, useless against whatever made that sound. But then her hand automatically sought the pouch of dried moon petals she always carried. It was a muscle memory from her past because the power was always there, simmering. She ran toward the sound, a knot of pure terror tightening in her stomach. No matter how hard she tried to stop, her feet had a will of their own. "Go back!" her mind screamed. "It's not your problem. Your son is alone." Instead, her body moved on instinct because her deep-seated core strength, empathy as power, had kicked in. The scent hit her first. Blood, pine sap, and ozone, a metallic tang that made her eyes water. As the wind shifted, the air thickened, making every breath feel heavy. She burst through a curtain of damp ferns. And there he was. Not a deer, not a bear. It was a wolf. A massive, magnificent creature, silver-tipped fur gleaming even in the deep shadows. It was impossibly large, bigger than any wolf in any story. It lay sprawled by the base of a split oak tree, its chest heaving, a dark, viscous pool spreading beneath its ribs. The moment their eyes locked, the forest held its breath. She didn't see a monster. She saw the life draining out of something beautiful. In the span of a breath, the years of exile, the fear, the warnings, they all dissolved. Lila's voice trembled. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered. She dropped the knife. Without warning, a low, guttural, pained grrrl rumbled deep in the wolf's throat. It was a sound of warning, of primal, untamed fury. As if the world narrowed, she knew she was standing before death, not just an animal's, but potentially her own. Despite that, she took a slow, deliberate step closer. "I'm not going to hurt you. I need to see." She knelt a safe distance away. At the same time, she noticed the wound. It wasn't from a hunter's gun. It was a deep, jagged gash that looked like it had been sliced by corrupted iron or dark magic. Because of that, she knew this wasn't an ordinary emergency. This was supernatural. Meanwhile, the wolf tried to lift its head, but only managed a pained shudder. Its breath came in ragged, wet gasps. Even so, its intelligent eyes held a burning intensity that felt like a challenge, a desperate plea, and a warning all rolled into one. "I have a gift," Lila murmured, talking to it as if it were a person, as the silence stretched and the woods seemed to listen. "A healer's gift, it's strong. But then, it's also why I'm alone." She hesitated. The fear came back, sharp and cold. "If I use it, it will draw attention. The magic will leave a scent." Yet, the wolf shuddered again, its great body twitching on the verge of collapse. In the quiet that followed, Lila made her decision. As if fate demanded it, she reached for the moon petal in her pouch, crushing the dried petals in her palm. The scent was like honeyed moonlight. "I won't let you die here," she vowed. And she let it happen. The only way back now was carrying a secret that was heavier than the wolf itself. Chapter 3. The Binding of Souls. Lila pressed her palm, already glowing with a soft, ethereal moon-silver light, directly onto the wolf's ragged wound. The magic felt like fire blooming beneath her skin, a rush of warmth that started in her chest and streamed through her arm. As the bond pulsed, it wasn't just physical, it was an electric, deep resonance, like two long-lost frequencies suddenly aligning. What followed was an intimate dance of power. The wolf arched its back, letting out a sharp, surprised yelp that was abruptly cut short. Because of that, she knew the magic was shocking him, healing faster than flesh should allow. The raw energy flowed from her and plunged into the creature's core, connecting to something vast, ancient, and kingly within. She was pouring her life force into him. With every heartbeat, the silver light pulsed brighter, and the tearing sound of rapidly knitting tissue was loud in the forest silence. The wolf's muscles, huge and rigid with pain just moments before, began to relax. Not only that, the dark wound began to close, stitching itself together like silk being drawn through skin. Kale's inner monologue, brief. The pain was a blinding, paralyzing fire. Then came the softest touch. Cool, like a stream in the deepest summer. It was alien, yet familiar. Moon magic. Impossible. Who was this fragile human? And why did her scent, layered with fear and ginger root, send a possessive, primal growl through his fading consciousness? Mate. Her soul answered his deepest, most wounded core. Meanwhile, Lila kept her focus, breathing deeply. As her pulse raced, she felt the drain. It was a sweet exhaustion, the price of life. As if the forest watched, the wolf suddenly looked different. The regal power was returning, the curse temporarily subdued by the life she'd given him. Yet, she couldn't leave him here. He was too heavy for her to move, too injured to walk. Because of that, she knew the ultimate sacrifice had already been made. She had to bring the forbidden back to the sanctuary she had risked everything to maintain. With a single glance, she understood what she had to do. She had to drag him back to the cabin because this king's survival was now inextricably linked to her deepest secret. Just like that, everything changed. The sight of her small, tired hands trying to move the massive, unconscious body of the Alpha King sealed the dramatic shift from quiet survival to high-stakes destiny. Chapter 4. The Scent of the Moon Healer. It took all night. By the time Lila finally got the wolf, no, Kale, into the cabin, half hidden by blankets on the floor near the hearth, she was shaking with exertion and fear. Come morning, she slept a fitful, shallow sleep curled on a chair by Ethan's bed. Soon after, the air itself shifted. It became charged, thick, with a scent that was wholly unfamiliar to the cabin: musk, cedar, and raw, predatory intensity. Lila woke, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The wolf was gone. Instead, kneeling by the hearth, was a man. He was breathtaking, built like a warrior, his shoulders wide, his skin a deep tan. But he wasn't fully human. His face was twisted in pain and confusion. His ears were slightly pointed, and silver-tipped fur still clung to his forearms. As the silence roared, he was frozen, half man, half beast, utterly lost. The space between them burned. He looked up, and his golden eyes, the same ones that had pleaded with her in the woods, were now alight with a confused, dominating fury. "Who are you?" The voice was a gravelly roar, a low, rumbling growl that barely fit in his throat. Lila scrambled backward, her survival instinct finally overriding her healing instinct. She felt it, clear as day. This man was dangerous. "You're a shifter," she breathed out, terror seizing her breath. "You're... Kyle?" Before either could speak, Kale slammed his fist onto the wooden floor. Crack! The tension broke. "My name is Draven," he corrected her, the authority in his voice absolute, which meant he was actively hiding his true rank even in this state. "And you smell my familiar." He inhaled deeply, his nostrils flaring. With his scent in the air, a possessive hunger entered his gaze. "You smell like moon petal. And mine." "I smell like the woman who saved your life," Lila shot back, standing her ground, trying to ignore the heat and want that suddenly bloomed low in her belly. Her voice trembled. "Moon magic. You're human," he muttered, shaking his head. Deep down, he knew the truth. His senses were screaming mate. But then, his mind screamed impossible. A human couldn't be a moon healer. A human couldn't be his Luna. The antagonist's shadow. Suddenly, Kale flinched, his head whipping toward the window. Without another word, the air of primal desire vanished, replaced by a cutting focus. "Someone is near," he hissed, his eyes narrowed. They followed the moon petal's scent. "They're close." As the echo faded, Lila realized her actions had just done the unthinkable. They hadn't just saved a life. They had opened the door to the wolf world's violence. Her greatest fear had come true because she had used her power. That's why she looked at the man, this cursed king, and then at the closed door of her son's room. Her world tilted. The safety she had desperately maintained was gone. The catalyst is here, and the first hunt has begun. Chapter 5. Forced Coexistence. The air in the small cabin was thick enough to chew, not with love, but with pure, panicked adrenaline and Kale's overwhelming, musky scent. "They're gone for now," Draven said. He stood by the window, his large, imposing figure dwarfing the small space. But then, his gaze kept snapping back to Lila. As the air thickened, his golden eyes had that same confused, hungry look. "Gone? Who, Draven? Who followed you?" Lila whispered, keeping her voice low so Ethan, still asleep, wouldn't stir. That's why she stepped closer, needing answers. Hunters. They want me dead, he replied, his voice still a low, rough rumble. He turned, and the moment their eyes locked, she felt a dizzying pull like standing on the edge of a great cliff. In the quiet that followed, the question hung heavy between them. Why did you save me? I won't be your hostage. I have my son, she cried. Despite that, she knew the truth. If his enemies found the place, Draven or not, they would kill them all. You have our son, he corrected softly, his voice dropping an octave as if summoned. I sense it, Lila. Your sickness. The child. Lila gasped, stumbling back. Her world tilted. How could he know? The Moon Healer bloodline, Draven continued, stepping closer. He spoke with the cold, hard authority of a king. They hunt me for my crown. They will hunt you for your power. And what's worse, they will hunt him for his blood. Draven had been keeping a secret, even from himself. You healed me, Lila, but then you bound us. Our life forces are linked now. We are fated mates. Like it or not, our survival is one and the same. This wasn't romance. This was a predatory, high-stakes pact. Not only that, his confession explained his protective fierceness, turning his gruffness into something fiercely compelling. From there, Draven laid down the rules. He stays until the threat passes. He protects. She hides and heals. Their forced proximity had begun. Chapter 6, A King's Burden. That night, the cabin felt like a cage for the powerful man forced to play human. Lila was sitting by the fire, pretending to read while Draven sharpened a wicked-looking blade. As the silence stretched, the tension was almost unbearable. The wound... You said it was dark magic, Lila finally ventured, keeping her voice carefully neutral. What kind of curse traps a man between forms? Draven stopped, his hands frozen over the steel. He was furious at the memory. With every step he took toward her, the air grew colder. My cousin Soren, he spat out the name like poison. He craves the throne. He used old forbidden magic, a blood curse to weaken me, hoping to drive me mad trapped in the wild so he could claim my pack. Lila looked at him, not seeing the monster the village warned her about, but the cursed warrior. Why didn't you heal yourself? My body rejects it. It needs a pure moon healer power to break the curse, he explained, his eyes darkening with a genuine tragic sadness. The healers were wiped out centuries ago, or so we thought. Still, I was losing myself. I would lose myself to the beast entirely. My beta, he sacrificed himself so I could escape Soren's trap. I watched him die, and I couldn't help, because the curse stripped my strength. The loss was etched onto his face. This vulnerability broke through Lila's walls. The space between them burned with shared pain, his grief, her exile. On the other hand, Draven recognized her pain. And your exile? You said they called it witchcraft. What happened? Lila hesitated. Her thoughts spun. She never spoke of this. I healed a fever in a child, but then he fell ill again a year later, and they blamed the impure magic. They beat me. They drove us out. Because of that, I carry the misbelief that my gift brings destruction. They are fools, Draven growled, his hand tightening into a fist. Your gift is a life force. It is the purest thing I have ever felt. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Lila felt a fierce need to trust him. She saw his true strength, his protectiveness, now directed at her and her gift. In the echo of his voice, a dangerous thought formed. If Soren was this powerful, they needed an ally. What followed was the immediate understanding that they couldn't fight this alone. Chapter 7, The Discovery of the Moon Petal Scent. The next day, the illusion of safety was shattered. As the wind shifted, Draven's head snapped up from where he was checking the perimeter of the cabin. They're back, closer this time. How close? Lila's voice was sharp with panic. She instinctively moved toward Ethan, pulling him close. Too close, Draven confirmed, his golden eyes blazing. They smell the moon petal I carry. Your lingering scent from the healing. We need to mask it." Without thinking, Draven grabbed Lila's arm and pulled her into the small pantry, forcing them into a tiny, airless closet among dried herbs. As the sky darkened outside, the space between them was non-existent. Meanwhile, the sound of snapping twigs grew audible. Wolf scouts. Draven pressed her body against the back wall, completely enveloping her with his massive form. His scent in the air was overwhelming, a cloak of musk and predator. His heartbeat hammered against her spine. With his scent in the air, her pulse raced. "Breathe my air," he commanded, his breath hot against her ear, his lips brushing her hair. "Fill your lungs with me. They need to smell my territory, not your weakness." This forced intimacy was torture. Every nerve ending screamed. She felt it, clear as day, the powerful energy of the alpha instinct radiating off him. As if pulled by a string, her body leaned into his strength, acknowledging the primal protection. In the span of a breath, the outer door creaked open. Footsteps, soft, controlled, wolf-like, entered the main room. "Soren says the king must be near," a low voice outside hissed. "The scent of moon petal is strong here, like a lure." Lila froze, her breath caught. They know what the scent means. Draven shifted, his body tensing, ready to explode into violence. But then, he softened his pressure on her, moving his hand to her waist. He pressed her hips firmly against his, a deliberate act of masking their two scents. As the bond pulsed, it was a dizzying mix of terrifying danger and electrifying primal passion. Plot twist R hook. As the scout's footsteps approached the pantry door, Kale subtly used his shifter ability to suppress his human heartbeat. But Lila couldn't control hers. Her heart skipped. She squeezed her eyes shut, and in that moment of fear, she felt a fleeting rush of silver light shoot from her palm, briefly suppressing her own human fear scent. Just like that, everything changed. The footsteps paused, then retreated. By the time the sound of the wolves faded into the distance, Lila was shaking uncontrollably. Draven loosened his hold, but didn't release her entirely. "You're not weak, Moonpetal," he murmured, his voice husky. "You're a weapon, and you're mine." He kissed her then, a hard, demanding, possessive kiss that wiped the terror away, replacing it with the dizzying need that had been simmering since his transformation. This kiss was the catalyst. Now, they were officially crossing a line that would be impossible to retreat from. Chapter 8. The Alpha's Reveal. The kiss ended, but the danger did not. Just like that, the air crackled with a sound far louder than footsteps, the unmistakable, hungry howl of a full wolf pack closing in. "They're not scouts this time," Draven rasped, pulling back from Lila, his eyes instantly shifting from desire to pure, savage readiness. "They're Soren's hunting party. They will burn this cabin down to get to the scent." Lila's blood ran cold. Burn the cabin? Her son was still asleep. To make things worse, she was paralyzed by the sheer terror of facing an army of wolves. "We have to run," she pleaded, gripping his arm. "No," he commanded, his voice deep and authoritative. Instead, he pushed her behind him, shielding her completely. "I won't run from my cousin's mutts. I fight, and you hide Ethan." What followed was a terrifying primal spectacle. Kyle didn't just transform, he exploded out of his human skin. Without warning, every muscle in his body tightened and swelled, stretching his clothes until the fabric screamed and ripped away. Bones audibly cracked, shifting and reshaping with brutal force. In the span of a breath, the man was gone. The air thickened with ozone, pine, and the terrifying musky scent of a predator fully unleashed. He was impossibly huge, even larger than the dying wolf she'd found. This was the Alpha King in his true, silver-fang glory, massive, black, and silver-tipped, radiating an aura of raw, untamed power that made the very ground tremble. As her wolf stirred, a fleeting thought that she instantly repressed because she was still human, still terrified, Lila could only stare. The fear was overwhelming, yet beneath it was a strange, undeniable pride. Not only that, Kale let out a deafening roar that was more than just sound. It was a wave of pure, dominating command, a challenge to the approaching pack. He didn't wait. Before he could move, he smashed through the small wooden window, the glass shattering like ice, and launched himself into the forest. The cabin walls shook with the force of his exit. Lila scrambled to Ethan's room, snatching him from the bed. Her body moved on instinct. "Shh, baby, we're going on an adventure," she murmured, holding him tight. That's why she knew they had seconds. She felt it, clear as day, the fight raging just beyond the walls. She knew one truth. Because of that ferocious, desperate display of power, they were safe from the initial attack. But they could no longer stay. Just like that, everything changed. Kale had revealed his wolf to save them. But now, her human world was irrevocably destroyed. Chapter 9. Into the Wolf Kingdom. By the time Kale returned, bloodied, panting, and half-shifted back into his human form, the sounds of the retreating pack were already fading. He looked at Lila, his face grim. "They won't be back for the body, but they'll be back for the scent." "We leave now," Draven ordered, his chest still heaving. He grabbed a satchel with the moon petal she'd packed. From there, the true journey began. Draven carried Ethan effortlessly in his arms, wrapping him tightly in a blanket, while he kept a protective hand on Lila's back. As the bond pulsed, it felt like a tether of necessity, pulling her deeper into a land of shadows and secrets. The deep forest quickly gave way to the Silverfang territory, a place of mist, gigantic ancient trees, and an eerie silence broken only by their footsteps. It was a world of primal law, completely alien to Lila's solitary life. Meanwhile, Draven noticed Lila's fatigue and fear. Even so, he spoke softly to her, easing her anxiety. "The curse makes my scent erratic. A beacon. But we are close to Moonreach Keep. My true home." "Your home," Lila repeated, the word tasting like metal. "A place of brutal politics and wolves who hate humans." "They hate humans. Yes," Draven admitted, looking ahead into the dense fog. But then, his voice softened, revealing a painful truth. "They also hate my weakness. They fear a cursed king. They will fear you, Lila, because you bring a different kind of power." As the truth unraveled, he told her the story of the Moon Healers, a powerful, ancient bloodline of women who could heal shifters and bind the Alpha King's line, lost for centuries. She felt it, clear as day, the realization clicking into place. The healing power wasn't a curse. It was a royal birthright. Her true nature. "My mother was a descendant who hid her lineage," Draven explained. "She knew Soren would want to weaponize that power. You are the last. You are the lost Luna." Lila stumbled, reeling from the gravity of his words. Her world tilted. The village's witchcraft was actually the lost key to a kingdom. In that moment, the misbelief, "my power only brings pain," began to truly crack. Not only that, as they crested a low hill, she saw it. Moonreach Keep, a looming, ancient fortress of dark stone sitting beneath a swirling blood-red moon. It was majestic, intimidating, and completely cut off from the human world. "Welcome home, Luna," Draven murmured, his gaze possessive. That's why his voice was full of authority. He had just dragged his human mate into the very den of political snakes. Chapter 10. The Hostile Welcome. The atmosphere inside the Silverfang territory wasn't one of rescue. It was one of deep, unsettling suspicion. Soon after they passed through the immense iron gates of Moonreach Keep, they were met by a crowd of large, hostile wolves, all shifted into human form, their expressions cold and challenging. A formidable woman, Varya, the interim beta, stepped forward. Her dark eyes swept over Kyle, lingering critically on the remaining patches of silver fur on his skin, signs of the lingering curse. Then her gaze dropped to Lila and Ethan with palpable distaste. "King Draven," Varya said, her tone sharp, laced with barely concealed contempt. We are relieved you live. But then, why do you bring human scent into the sacred keep? And a child? Draven squared his shoulders, his alpha power rising instantly to meet the challenge. She is Lila, my mate, and this is my son. His voice was iron. Varya recoiled as if struck. What followed was a wave of audible gasps and low, hostile snarls from the surrounding pack. Impossible. The Luna must be pureblood. A human and a bastard? Lila's anger flashed, fierce, maternal, and protective. She felt it, clear as day, the urge to strike back. My name is Lila Rowan. My son is safe here, because I saved your king's life. The tension broke with Varya's cold laugh. You saved a wolf, woman, not a king, and your magic is an impurity. Soren will use this human weakness to destroy us all. Despite that outright verbal attack, Lila stood taller. She looked at Draven, finding in his golden eyes a raw, protective fire. In the echo of his voice from the woods, "You're a weapon," she found her resolve. She realized she had been running her whole life, and now it was time to fight. Your cousin Soren is using dark magic to conquer the realm, Lila stated, challenging Varya directly. I possess the moon healer power that can break his curse, which meant I am your greatest defense, not your weakness. The statement was a bold move, a direct public declaration of her power and value. As the silence stretched, the surrounding pack looked at each other, confused. Could the hated human truly be their salvation? Meanwhile, Draven watched Lila, a look of profound, primal adoration mixing with his regal authority. Her soul answered the needs of his kingdom. That's why he put his arm around Lila's shoulders, pulling her fiercely against his side. She stays, she rules. The king has decreed it. Any challenge to her is a challenge to my crown. The first political battle was won by the sheer force of the Alpha King's will. But then, Lila knew that winning the pack's loyalty would be a much harder, much longer war. The new reality was harsh. She was safe from the woods, but trapped in a castle filled with enemies who wanted her power, her title, and her life. Chapter 11. The Queen's Isolation. The stone corridors of Moonreach Keep were cold, heavy, and silent. They felt less like a royal home and more like an icy tomb. Lila was given a lavish chamber, but it offered no comfort. As the silence stretched, the opulence only emphasized her terrifying isolation. Every passing pack member, the guards, the servants, the warriors, offered glares that were sharp, judgmental, and utterly cold. She felt it, clear as day. The quiet hostility was worse than the wolves outside her old cabin. They believed she was a human weakness, an impurity that had brought danger to their king, which meant she had to prove them wrong. Draven, now fully healed by her magic, was consumed by the politics of war. Meanwhile, he spent his days in council, trying to consolidate his power against the growing faction loyal to Soren. Why do they hate me so much, Draven? Lila asked him late one night, her voice hushed as she watched him pore over ancient cryptic maps. Draven looked up, his golden eyes filled with a weary, possessive tenderness. Fear, Moonpetal, he murmured, crossing the room to sit beside her. He was furious at their resistance. They fear the unknown. They fear change. Because of that, they cling to tradition, and tradition says the Luna is wolf-born. As her pulse raced beneath his gaze, he took her hand. But they will learn. You are my mate. You are the strongest healer our bloodline has ever known. You must learn to use that strength, not hide it. From there, Draven began her instruction. Not in fighting, but in controlling the vast life force she carried. He showed her how to focus the moon-silver light without draining herself, because her power was meant to heal a kingdom, not just one wolf. She didn't know what scared her more, the intensity of the power she now willingly embraced, or the vulnerability of having Draven's full focused attention on her. But then, she needed to get better, and she needed to do it fast. Open Loop 3. Subplot: Ethan's struggle. Ethan, meanwhile, was terrified. He missed the woods. He spent his time near the hearth drawing pictures that were now filled with angry, sharp-toothed wolves. To make things worse, he started asking Lila about the shadowy figure on his last drawing in the cabin. Who were the guardians Mrs. Willow talked about? Lila felt a chilling premonition. The simple human world was still dangerously connected to this wolf war. Chapter 12. The Scent of Betrayal. The forced proximity slowly gave way to genuine, passionate intimacy. That night, the emotional walls between them began to crumble entirely. Draven found Lila in the tower library, tracing the names of the lost moon healers carved into a stone column. As the air thickened with unexpressed desire, he approached, his eyes dark with a mix of longing and grief. "This is the hardest part of being Alpha," he confessed, his voice low. "The isolation. You are the only one I can trust, the only one who has seen the beast and still offered her life force." Not only that, he admitted the true depth of the curse. The blood curse. It was designed to make me lash out, to hurt my own. The reason I was so quick to anger in the cabin, so commanding, it wasn't just my nature, it was the poison. "You fight a battle inside yourself," Lila realized, reaching out to touch his scarred arm. She felt it, clear as day. His pain was a physical weight. What followed was a moment of profound vulnerability. Draven knelt before her, his head against her stomach, near where their child lay. "My father, the previous Alpha? Soren corrupted him. Because of that, I was forced to kill my own father in wolf form to save the pack. That's the burden I carry, Lila." This act of sharing, this willingness to show her his weakness, was the greatest act of love he could offer. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, the passion between them ignited. They were two broken souls finding salvation in each other's strength. The tension broke. Their kiss was deep, a powerful fusion of need and destiny. It was not just lust. It was a desperate claiming, the primal urge of two fated souls finally recognizing and accepting their dangerous bond. With every heartbeat, their bodies moved together, a fierce, protective rhythm. Just like that, everything changed, solidifying their mate bond through both heart and body. But then, danger always lurked. As they lay entwined, recovering in the dark, Draven suddenly grew still. Without another word, his golden eyes darted to the ceiling. "Soren has a spy inside the keep," he stated, the warmth replaced by granite authority, which meant every move they made was being reported. "But there's something else. The wound I had, the one with dark iron. Soren is forging a weapon, something that specifically harms shifters who use moon magic." This was a major complication. The enemy had a dedicated, specific resource to counter Lila's power. Chapter 13. The Midpoint Shift. Soren strikes the next day, the spy acted. Lila was practicing her healing focus in the outer courtyard, trying to mend a cracked stone, when the alarm sounded. Loud, chaotic, and immediate. In that moment, a huge, dark cloud of corrupted magic like a physical storm descended upon the keep. This was Soren's move. A direct, overwhelming attack using dark lunar magic to bypass the keep's defenses. Draven roared, shifting instantly to his massive wolf form, launching himself into the fray. Warriors scrambled, but the dark magic was disorienting, turning their instincts against them. Meanwhile, Lila was pinned down by the sheer force of the hostile energy. Yet she focused her fear, letting the silver light surge from her hands to protect Ethan, who had run to her. As the truth unraveled, one of Soren's lieutenants, a feral-looking wolf, breached the inner wall. He wasn't after Draven, he was after Lila. He was furious as he lunged, not with claws, but with a strange, jagged metal blade. The corrupted iron Draven had mentioned. Before she could move, Draven saw the threat. The wind carried his name as he tackled the lieutenant, a vicious, desperate snarl tearing from his throat. What followed was a violent, desperate fight. Draven was faster and stronger, but the iron blade bit into his shoulder, the contact making him scream in human pain, because the metal was cursed. That's why Lila didn't hesitate. She ran straight toward the fight. Her body moved on instinct. She didn't heal. She attacked. She channeled all the pure moon healer energy she could muster into a powerful shockwave, blasting the lieutenant back against the wall. He crumpled, stunned. The revelation, midpoint shift. Lila didn't just have passive healing power. She could weaponize the life force. Just like that, everything changed. Draven, panting heavily in wolf form, looked at her, not with surprise, but with an overwhelming surge of pride and possessiveness. The pack, momentarily stunned, saw not a fragile human, but a formidable Luna Queen defending her king. By the time Soren's attack was repelled, the keep had suffered massive structural damage, but the leadership had held. Draven, wounded but resolute, addressed the assembled warriors. The enemy has the means to weaken me, but our Luna has the power to destroy his magic. We change our strategy. We will not wait for him to find the source of her power. We will use her power to find the source of his curse. Chapter 14. The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. The council room in Moonreach Keep now felt different. The pack members were silent, not with hate, but with nervous curiosity. As the air thickened, Lila stood beside Draven, her presence no longer challenged. Soren is protected by dark lunar magic, Draven explained, pointing at a map marked with corrupted territories. It shrouds his true location, but then Lila's moon healer power is the opposite of his. It can track that darkness. Not only that, Draven had secured a small elite group of loyal warriors for their mission. Because of that, he knew they couldn't risk the entire pack. This was a private strike, a point of no return. I can track the corruption, Lila confirmed, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. She felt it, clear as day, the power humming, eager to be used. But it's a deep, powerful darkness. It will require me to use my gift outside the keep's protection. We go together, Draven stated, his gaze meeting hers, a look of pure commitment. The space between them burned with mutual reliance, which meant their fate was sealed. Victory or death would find them side by side. That's why they left under the cover of a freezing, misty night. With every step he took, Draven was the hunter, silent and lethal, leading their small, cloaked party through the treacherous forest. Meanwhile, Lila was the guide, her hands glowing faintly, channeling the silver light to seek out the trail of black, creeping corruption Soren had left behind. Yet, the path twisted and turned, and the darkness felt alive, actively resisting her power. In that moment, Lila realized how powerful Soren truly was. It's trying to hide, she whispered, exhausted, her breath catching. It's near an old human settlement, deep in the woods, far from here. Draven's eyes narrowed. An abandoned temple. It's where the blood curse was forged. Without another word, he gripped her hand, his thumb stroking her pulse point. We found his lair. We go in and destroy the altar where his power is rooted. As the bond pulsed, they shared a silent vow. This was war. Chapter 15. The Altar of Corruption. By the time they breached the ruined stone walls, Soren's guards were waiting. What followed was a fierce, chaotic fight. Draven, flanked by his loyalists, became a blur of silver-tipped black fur, his movements precise and devastating. On the other hand, Lila stood at the perimeter. As the wind shifted, the corrupted air rushed toward her. Because of that, she had to constantly channel her healing power outward, creating a protective barrier of pure silver light. Suddenly, a wave of powerful unseen force slammed into Draven, sending him tumbling back. He was instantly covered in a sickly green aura, the blood curse intensifying. To make things worse, Soren, though not present, was using the altar to amplify his magic. The altar, it is consuming his strength, Draven roared in pain, his voice breaking from man to wolf. That's why Lila had to act. Her body moved on instinct. She stopped defending and focused all her energy toward the center of the temple. Not only that, she channeled her silver light like a battering ram, aiming for the dark iron altar. The two powers clashed. Lila's pure, shimmering moon force versus Soren's black, swirling corruption. As the silence roared, the light hit the altar. It didn't explode. It shattered, the cursed metal disintegrating into smoking dust. The revelation. The darkness immediately receded. Draven's pain lessened, and the sickly green aura vanished. Just like that, everything changed. They had destroyed Soren's power source. Before she could move, the remaining enemy wolves vanished, retreating in chaos. As the echo faded, Draven shifted back, exhausted but whole, his eyes shining with victory and gratitude. "You did it, Luna," he breathed, collapsing onto his knees. "You broke the focus of the curse." As the bond pulsed, it felt stronger, permanently sealed by their shared victory. But then the silence was broken by the sound of Draven's loyal beta, Rhys, rushing in with terrible news. Chapter 16. The Vicious Retaliation. "My king, we have been betrayed," Rhys panted, his face pale with terror. Come morning, the spy within Moonreach Keep had done his work. In that moment, Draven's fortress had been left exposed. What followed was the single worst piece of news Lila could imagine. The human woman who was seen talking to the young master, Mrs. Willow, Rhys choked out. She was a spy. Soren used her to lure the boy. Lila felt the world tilt and shatter. "Ethan, the Guardians take you." Her heart skipped. Without warning, Draven surged to his feet. "Where is he, Rhys?" She led him into the forest, into the old human settlement on the border. "Soren is waiting for you both," Rhys confirmed. "He knows Lila's greatest weakness is not her power, it is her son. Because of that, he wants to force her into a trap." Lila felt a terrifying, cold fury unlike anything she'd ever known. Her thoughts spun. Her deepest misbelief, "my power only brings pain," was screaming at her. "He wants to trade the boy for the moon healer," Draven growled, his body shaking with a primal, protective rage, which meant this was no longer a war for a crown. It was a desperate, personal rescue mission. As the sky darkened over the ruined temple, Lila met Draven's gaze, her eyes blazing with determination. She felt it, clear as day. This was the true point of no return. "We don't go back for the pack, Draven," Lila whispered, her voice steel. "We go for our son, and I will use every single ounce of my power to destroy anyone who touches him." Chapter 17. The Trap in the Old Town. The abandoned human settlement was a ghost town, rotting wood, collapsed roofs, and the chilling silence of betrayal. By the time Lila and Draven arrived, the air was heavy with the smell of death and anticipation. Without warning, Soren stepped out from the shadows of the old church ruins. His shift eyes glowed a menacing, corrupted red. He was flanked by his dark court of wolves. Meanwhile, Ethan was tied to a crumbling stone wall, tears streaming down his face. Lila let out a choked gasp. Her heart skipped. She surged forward, but Draven's iron grip held her back. "Stop, Luna," Soren sneered, using the title mockingly. "So glad you came. You bring me the only thing I need, the full, unprotected moon healer power." What followed was a cruel confirmation of Soren's plan. "I want your strength, cousin, but I want her blood more," Soren continued, his voice slick with ambition. "With the moon healer life force, I can gain immortality and control the entire wolf kingdom." Draven attacked with the ferocity of a protective father. But then, Soren was prepared. He commanded his cursed army to swarm Draven, pinning the king down with sheer numbers. As the silence roared, Soren unleashed a wave of raw, dark lunar magic, a black, choking cloud that directly targeted Draven. The king screamed, the sound tearing through the tense air as the curse intensified. To make things worse, Draven collapsed, half-shifted, immobilized, and writhing in agony. He was defeated. As the echo faded, Lila's blood ran cold. She was forced to watch her mate, the most powerful creature she knew, fail. She felt it, clear as day, the devastating, heartbreaking certainty that she was too late. Chapter 18. The Dark Night of the Soul. Soren sauntered over to Draven's defeated form, kicking him contemptuously. Not only that, he then turned his attention to Lila, his cruel red eyes shining with triumph. "You have a choice, Moonpetal," Soren purred, stepping dangerously close to Ethan. "Give me your blood, your life force, and the boy lives. You fail, and I take him and the king, and they both die slowly, poisoned by my curse." Lila was shaking, a terrible internal storm brewing. Her thoughts spun. If I give him my blood, I die. If I don't, Ethan and Draven die. The situation was impossibly bleak, which meant there was no escape. "Don't do it, Lila," Draven choked out, fighting the paralysis of the curse. "Don't give him your power, it's what he wants." On the other hand, Ethan cried out, "Mama, I'm scared." The sound of her son's distress shattered her remaining composure. She didn't know what scared her more, death or the profound, crushing failure of having exposed the two people she loved most to this violence. The lowest point arrived. Lila dropped to her knees. Despite that being her greatest power, she whispered the words that had haunted her for years. "My power only brings pain." The misbelief resurfaced. I should have never healed him. Now everyone I touch suffers. She felt it, clear as day, a wave of desperate despair washing over her. She raised her hands in surrender, ready to sacrifice herself. Because of that despair, her silver light dimmed. But then, something unexpected happened. As she raised her hands, defeated, she caught sight of Ethan. His eyes, usually innocent, were suddenly wide, not just with fear, but with a momentary flash of golden wolf light, a tiny, powerful echo of his father. In that moment, Draven managed to lift his head, his eyes locking with Lila's. His voice was raw. "Lila, our son. He has the strength. You are not pain. You are life." The faint glimpse of wolf light in Ethan, combined with Draven's final, desperate affirmation, pierced through Lila's despair. As if pulled by a string, the truth wrestled with the misbelief. The only way to win was to heal him with the life force, binding them forever, and then use the weaponized power on Soren. She had to risk everything. The antagonist's victory. Soren, seeing her hesitation and exhaustion, smiled. "It's over, Luna. Your power is mine." He advanced, raising a dark, pulsating hand to claim her. The final push is now inevitable. Chapter 19. The Moon Healer's Resolve. Soren was one step away, his shadow falling over Lila's collapsed form. His cruel hand reached out, ready to plunge into her heart. But then, something inside Lila snapped, the primal rage of a mother protecting her young. In that moment, Lila realized the terrifying beauty of her destiny, which meant she hadn't brought pain. She had been running from the fight that would bring true salvation. Just like that, everything changed. She raised her hands in absolute command. The silver light that had dimmed under fear now surged back, blindingly powerful. "You want my life force, Soren?" Lila's voice was strong, resonating with an authority that shocked the dark court wolves. "You can't take it, I give it!" What followed was the most sacred act of healing. She turned instantly from Soren and crawled toward Draven's paralyzed body. Without another word, she pressed both hands firmly onto his chest. As the bond pulsed, she began to pour her entire being into him. As her pulse raced, the silver light didn't just heal. It plunged deep into his soul, searching for the root of Soren's blood curse. Not only that, she used her unique power to perform the forbidden ultimate healing, binding their souls. She was weaving her life, her power, her very essence into his, locking them together as true mates. Because of that, the curse was rejected by the strength of their combined Alpha and Luna life forces. Draven roared, not in pain, but in the overwhelming rush of pure, sovereign power flooding his body. The paralysis broke. He was the Alpha King, stronger than before. Meanwhile, Lila collapsed, utterly drained. Her skin was pale, her life force spent in the ultimate sacrifice. She felt it, clear as day, a sweet exhaustion that was close to death. She had given him everything. Chapter 20. The final confrontation. Draven surged to his feet, shifting fully to his gargantuan wolf form. His silver-tipped fur was crackling with residual moon healer power, a terrifying sight. He was furious, his golden eyes blazing with vengeful justice. What followed was the final chaotic battle. Draven tackled Soren with a devastating snarl, driving the usurper into the dirt. With every heartbeat, the king fought with an unleashed righteous fury, fueled by Lila's sacrifice. On the other hand, Soren fought with wild, desperate abandon. To make things worse, he knew he had lost his leverage. He continued to throw corrupted wolves at the king. Lila lay barely conscious. As the bond pulsed, she poured protection into Ethan, her only remaining priority. As the silence stretched, Draven finally pinned Soren. He stood over his cousin. "You tried to break the bond of the moon healers," Draven growled. "You failed. Because of that, your darkness is extinguished." Just like that, Draven ended the physical fight. The resolution. The dark magic surrounding Soren immediately dissipated. By the time the dust settled, Draven shifted back, exhausted but whole, rushing immediately to Lila's side. He saw her pale skin, her shallow breath. Despite that being his greatest victory, it was his greatest fear. As the sky darkened, he gathered her in his arms. He had won the war, but he was losing his Luna, which meant their victory was incomplete. Chapter 21. The Luna rises. "Lila, you fought with your life force," Draven pleaded, tears blurring his vision. In that moment, he felt the truth of their binding. She was in him. Without warning, Draven realized what he had to do. She had given him life, and now he had to give it back. He pressed his lips to hers, not in passion, but in a transfer of life force. He focused the alpha energy, the vitality of his king status, and poured it back into her. With every step he took in his mind, he wove his power back into her exhausted shell. What followed was a dizzying, warm rush of strength flowing from Draven to Lila. As the bond pulsed, they were two halves of one soul, eternally trading strength. Lila gasped, her eyes flying open. The pale color rushed back into her face. She was alive. Just like that, everything changed. Their love was literally their life. As the echo faded, the loyal wolves rushed forward. Ethan ran straight to his parents. The final emotional climax. The surviving Silverfang wolves watched this impossible scene. The king healed, the human Luna revived by the king's own life. They felt it, clear as day, the power and absolute truth of the bond. As if fate demanded it, Varya, the most hostile of the betas, knelt first. "My Luna," she murmured, her voice laced with grudging respect. Not only that, the entire surviving pack knelt, not to the Alpha King, but to the self-sacrificing moon healer Luna Queen. The political war was over. Because of that, their union was legitimized, uniting two worlds. Chapter 22. The Scars of Victory. The sun was rising over the ruins of the old human town. By the time the pack had cleared the last remnants of Soren's curse, peace had settled, a heavy, fragile peace. Lila lay nestled in Draven's arms. She felt it, clear as day, the powerful, vital energy of the Alpha King now thrumming beneath her skin, mixing with her own moon healer power. "You gave me everything," Draven murmured, his lips brushing her hair. "And you gave it back," Lila whispered, tracing the perfectly healed scar on his chest. Just like that, everything changed. The curse was gone, banished by their unified soul. Meanwhile, Ethan was safe, fast asleep, protected by the combined aura of his parents. As the echo faded, Varya approached, hesitant, yet holding herself with a new respect. "My Luna, my king, we await your orders." Draven looked at Lila. That's why Lila spoke first. "The keep is damaged. The pack is divided. Our first order is to heal the territory, not conquer more." Not only that, Lila finally shed the misbelief that had haunted her. Deep down, she knew the truth. Her power wasn't a source of pain. It was a source of life and law. She had run from it, but then she had embraced it, and in doing so had secured her son's safety. What followed was the sight of the newly united pack, bowing to both their leaders, the fierce Alpha King and the gentle, life-giving Luna Queen. The human exile was now the undisputed ruler of the wolf world. 2 years later, the Moonreach Keep shone beneath the full moon. The fortress, once dark and brutal, now stood restored. Draven stood on the highest parapet. As the bond pulsed, he felt Lila's presence, warm and constant, an eternal anchor to his soul. Without warning, Lila joined him. With his scent in the air, she always felt completely home. "Ethan tracked a rabbit all the way to the old border," she chuckled. "He didn't catch it, but then he brought back the sweetest wild raspberries." Ethan was now a happy, robust boy of 9, his eyes flashing with the same golden light as his father, because the alpha blood was strong in him, yet tempered by the moon healer gentleness of his mother. "Peace suits you, my Luna," Draven murmured, pulling her close. Despite that being a kingdom steeped in violence, they had carved out a space for unity. Lila leaned into him. As the truth unraveled, they had done the impossible. They had healed the oldest of curses, which meant their story was just beginning. In that moment, they looked out at the moonlit woods, their kingdom, a world where love was the greatest power, and where a small, exiled human had become the salvation of a great, proud wolf kingdom. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more of my stories, and also don't forget to hit the like